Hello and welcome to the DSR Daily. I'm David Rothkopf. I'm here joined by Minna Stein and our friend Riley Fessler, who is back, feels better, looking great. How you doing, Riley?
I am able to keep food down, not solid food, but at least Jello. So I'm on the up.
TMI. Okay. Okay. Well, look, that's good. We're glad you're feeling better. And for those of you who are interested in keeping solid food down, I just sign off right now because every day our list of stories has the opposite effect. Anyway, why don't we kick off because we'll look at the past week and we'll look ahead a little bit.
Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, the brother of King Charles III, was arrested on Thursday by British police on suspicion of misconduct in public office linked to his ties with the late Jeffrey Epstein. This unprecedented legal action follows the stripping of his royal titles and marks the first arrest of a senior royal for a serious crime since King Charles I was held for treason in 1649. The investigation centers on allegations that Andrew may have shared confidential government information with Epstein during his decade-long tenure as a British trade envoy. While Andrew has been released under investigation, King Charles III expressed deep concern over the matter but affirmed that the monarchy fully supports the legal process.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was actually watching Morning Joe this morning while I was working out, and there was our friend Ed Luce, and Ed Luce was asked about this. And he mentioned that the reason that Prince Andrew got to know Jeffrey Epstein was because Tony Blair appointed Prince Andrew as a trade envoy. And Charles, back then, Prince Charles, lobbied Tony Blair not to appoint Andrew because since he was a notorious playboy and kind of a ne'er-do-well, they thought it would only lead to him getting in trouble. And then the person who introduced Prince Andrew to Jeffrey Epstein was Peter Mandelson, who until a couple months ago was the British ambassador here, who a member of the Starmer government and longtime fixture in British politics. And so, this story is tangled and it goes back decades and decades. But even at the very outset, now King Charles, sort of saw warning signs. I also have been interested Julie Brown, the Miami Herald writer who sort of brought this story back from the dead a few years ago and really is the person most responsible for public awareness of Epstein and his crimes, has a Substack, and you can go and read her Substack. But in it, she says never in her wildest imagination did she think that she would actually see the day when Prince Andrew was arrested as a result of all of this. And of course, needless to say, she noted, as we noted yesterday, that the striking thing here is that, this happened in the UK. There was no sense of the impunity of high-ranking figures in the UK. There are others mixed up in this who are going to have problems, and maybe then Mandelson is the next one arrested or questioned. And of course, that hasn't happened here. In fact, I don't know. I looked at your story list. Wasn't there an item on your story list about the Department of Justice?
I
There
was
sure
just
is.
going to say, it's interesting that you bring that up because I have a story to follow up that continues to
Well, go
blur
for it.
those lines.
Go for it.
A large banner bearing the image of Donald Trump and the slogan "Make America Safe Again" was unfurled outside the U.S. Department of Justice headquarters, marking the latest effort to align federal institutions more closely with the president's identity and agenda. Similar branding moves have appeared on other agencies and cultural institutions, including the U.S. Institute of Peace and the John F. Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts. As critics argue, such actions blur the line between political leadership and independent government functions. The development follows past legal battles involving former Special Counsel Jack Smith, whose prosecutions of Trump were dropped after the 2024 election, in line with the Justice Department's policy against indicting a sitting president.
Well, I'm against all of these things, the branding things that are going on. Trump's obsession with putting his name on everything he sees, except for confessions or legal documents. But I have to say, putting his big puss on the front of the Department of Justice is kind of truth in advertising, because it's not a Department of Justice. It's a Department of Obstruction of Justice, a Department of Injustice, and it's actually the largest single group of lawyers representing a single individual anywhere in the world, because they work for Donald Trump and they're essentially his private law firm, focused on protecting him and going after his enemies. But it is, kind of creepy also. I mean, this is how things work in totalitarian governments with cults of personality. You imagine pictures of Chairman Mao or Kim Jong-un or Stalin everywhere that you look. And that's what we're getting now as you go through Washington with these big Trump banners. We've never seen anything like this. I'm sure Trump is like, well, look, George Washington's picture's on the dollar. Somebody would have to explain to him that happened after Washington was dead. But, this is, also clear sign of why our justice system isn't working right now, and why Trump last night, again, when questioned on Air Force One about Andrew's arrest, said, well, I can speak on this. I'm an expert because I've been fully exonerated. And this is very sad. I feel very sad about, what's happened to Prince Andrew. But did I mention that I was fully exonerated? Of course, no one has exonerated him. Nothing has exonerated him. The Department of Justice has, put out a few or half of the documents that are associated with Epstein that we know to be in their possession. They've redacted a lot of them, but even within those documents, we know there's sworn testimony of people saying that Trump participated in rapes of young girls and threatening young girls with their murders. So I wouldn't say that's exoneration exactly. And I got to feel, he's feeling the heat. I mean, I had a piece about this up yesterday at the Daily Beast, if you want to read it. But in it, I make a point, which I may have made yesterday, but it's worth making again. And that is the Prince Andrew trial and any subsequent trials that exist elsewhere in the world where this system is not rigged ensures that this case is going to be out there throughout this election year. The mishandling of this by the Republicans in the House ensures this will be out there indefinitely. Epstein is going to dominate the 2026 elections, whether they like it or not. The only way that they could avoid having that happen is to release all 6 million pages of documents, remove the redactions, acknowledge the president's role in this, and begin investigations that provide justice for the women who are involved, which is, of course, the most important primary issue here. It's not going to happen. And so Trump is going to be dogged by this. And it's tormenting him every single night. And all I can say is that may be the only kind of justice we'll see, because clearly the victims of this have been tormented for many, many years. And it's about time that Trump and all the other men who are worried that their names are going to come out, as they very likely will, start paying a bigger price for their repugnant behavior.
Well, looking at some of the big stories from the week, President Trump has established a 10-day ultimatum to determine whether the U.S. will secure a, quote, meaningful nuclear deal with Iran or pivot toward military action. While the administration's Board of Peace and envoys like Jared Kushner have engaged in diplomatic talks, the U.S. has simultaneously surged military assets to the region following last year's strikes on Iranian nuclear facilities. In response, Tehran has warned the United Nations that U.S. regional bases will be considered legitimate targets, though the British government has reportedly denied the U.S. use of its bases for any potential escalation. Domestically, a bipartisan group of lawmakers is attempting to invoke the War Powers Act to prevent a conflict they fear would be catastrophic without explicit congressional approval.
Yeah, I mean, and the Iranians are like, well, we're negotiating in good faith. The foreign minister was also on this Morning Joe episode that I watched. I don't watch it every day, but I was sometimes when I'm working out, I do. And he said, we're working on trying to come up with a way to ensure that our nuclear program is peaceful and that sanctions will be lifted. And our last meeting was productive, and we're now working on a draft document. We're going to get that within 2 weeks. War or attacking us is not going to help things. We're prepared for that. There were stories out there saying that the Iranians feel that if Trump attacks and they get into a protracted war, that may actually strengthen their position in negotiations. I think there's some logic to that. But the British refusal to sort of serve as a staging area to support this kind of thing is a big deal, particularly given that the British Prime Minister is not a particular tower of strength. But they feel that this attack might be illegal. You got to ask yourself, well, if the negotiations are going along, why is Trump threatening now? Why were there leaked reports, very carefully leaked, obviously, that there might be an attack as early as this weekend? Anybody want to venture a guess? Go on. Anybody?
Minna, you guess. I don't want to guess.
We should get one of those buzzers, like in Jeopardy. Bing.
Because bad news happens over the weekend.
Well, that's true. But no, I think, and I know this is very cynical, I think it's because the State of the Union is next week. And I think Trump wants to stand up and have something positive to say in the middle of the State of the Union. Now, by the way, facts never get involved in this, and he'll say lots of positive things about the economy that aren't true, and about American standing in the world that aren't true, and about wars he solved that aren't true. But he wants to change the subject from Epstein, and I think he thought, well, we put the pressure and we can get a deal, then I can stand up and I can say, we've got a deal. Who knows? I think it's going to take longer than that. I actually think it's not impossible that they will get to a deal. I also think that whatever that deal is will look a heck of a lot like the deal that was struck in 2015 by the, dare I say it, Obama administration, the one that Trump pulled out of. I would also note, though, just because we're doing the week in review on all of this, that Trump, a few months ago when he attacked Iran, said, well, that's it for their nuclear program. And that's clearly not true. And it's a point the Iranian foreign minister made in this interview, which I believe you can go and look up on the Morning Joe YouTube site. But the Iranians, have scientists and resources and everything spread throughout the country. The bombing didn't stop the program, because if it did, this negotiation wouldn't be this urgent, right? One final point. The foreign minister did not bring up the issue of ballistic missiles. The Israelis are obsessed with the Iranian ability to build ballistic missiles. They want to get the Iranians to commit not to build more new ballistic missiles as part of this agreement. I think it's unlikely that they're going to get to that part of the deal. That could be a sticking point. And so it is something to watch.
How lucky are we to have a president who stopped nine wars?
9 at least. For some reason in my feed, I've been getting, in my Instagram feed, I've been getting these little AI clips of like superheroes beating up Trump and the administration. Have you seen these things?
No, but I'm worried about you.
You're worried about me?
Yeah. You're watching AI videos of...
No, they're just in the feed, and it's like Superman lands and pushes Donald Trump into the Grand Canyon, and Trump goes, "Wah!" and falls into the Grand Canyon. Or Wonder Woman lands and starts beating the hell out of Pam Bondi and knocks her out. Or, Pete Hegseth is pushed by Batman off of a aircraft carrier or something like that. They're 15 seconds long. If you Google them, you'll find them. But I do think it's we've gotten to a kind of a point of I don't know, just sort of just complete breakdown in our norms. driven by the lunacy of everything that's around us. And when you're getting these things and you're like, oh, that's kind of dumb, but funny. And then the next clip in your feed is RFK Jr. wearing his jeans in the sauna while working out with Kid Rock. You're like, what's the AI? You know, what, it's, oh, well, there's, Wonder Woman. She's not real. But then there's Corey Lewandowski, trying to fire a Coast Guard captain for not bringing Kristi Noem's blanket on the plane. I mean, I don't know. It's all blurring together for me. Maybe you should be worried about me. I think I'm losing my grip on reality.
Acceptance is the first step.
Thank you. Acknowledging you have a problem.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Stein.
Well, for our next story, we're going to stay on the topic of nuclear, which was a big topic this week. Donald Trump has informed Congress he is pursuing a civil nuclear agreement with Saudi Arabia that may not include longstanding U.S. non-proliferation safeguards, such as a ban on uranium enrichment or adoption of the IAEA's additional protocol. The proposed 123 agreement would position U.S. companies at the center of the kingdom's nuclear energy development, but has raised concerns among arms control groups that some lawmakers about proliferation risks and the precedent it could set, particularly as Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman has previously said Saudi Arabia would seek nuclear weapons if Iran did. Congress has a 90-day review period to block the deal, though it would take resolutions passed by both chambers to prevent it from taking effect.
I mean, look, what can you say? Peaceful nuclear enrichment programs are, net a good thing. Nuclear power, I think, is net a good thing. Some people don't agree. I think it's one of the best ways to avoid more damage to the climate. But it has to be peaceful, and you have to keep from proliferation of nuclear weapons. And clearly, you can't stop Iran from getting a nuclear weapon and then allow Saudi to get a nuclear weapon. There are other countries in the region that will then want to have a nuclear weapon. The alpha violation and trigger for all of this is that Israel's had a nuclear weapon for decades. Nobody acknowledges it, but it's known to be true. And so, it's a fundamentally hypocritical and imbalanced policy to say, well, Israel can have one, but nobody else can. And that's what's led these other countries in pursuit of these things. The best way to have a nuclear-free Middle East would be to have nuclear-free Israel. Sorry, nobody wants to hear that, but it's true. And they shouldn't need it if they have the U.S. nuclear umbrella. If you want to know why there's an Iranian nuclear program, look no further than that last point.
Well, I wanted to end us on a serious story.
Good, instead of all this lighthearted stuff
Yeah,
we're talking
all this
about,
Mickey Mouse stuff.
Armageddon.
Not
Having
important.
too much fun.
Yeah, wow, folks. Won't you be glad for the weekend? Okay, let's get serious.
President Donald Trump has directed the Pentagon and various government agencies to identify and release all files related to extraterrestrials and unidentified aerial phenomena, citing tremendous interest in the subject. This announcement follows a public back and forth with former President Barack Obama, whom Trump suggested he might, quote, get out of trouble, end quote, by declassifying information after Obama discussed the statistical likelihood of alien life. While the administration is pushing for disclosure, the Pentagon's All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office maintains that its investigations have yet to find any evidence of extraterrestrial technology or secret reverse engineering programs.
Well, that's a little specific, isn't it? That's like saying we've never found a bathtub from an alien spaceship. It's pretty narrow, If, on the other hand, there were footprints leading away from a mysterious crash site. No, this is more of the lunacy, more of the we're living in a strange, misguided simulation stuff. But it's also more wag the dog. It's like, let's distract them from Epstein. This Epstein thing's not going away. It's just not going away. The Epstein thing, to, take an analogy from another medium altogether, is like, do either of you guys know the musical Peter Pan?
Hmm.
And so in the musical Peter Pan, there is a crocodile that has swallowed a clock that follows Captain Hook around. And he can always tell that the crocodile is approaching because you can hear the ticking of the clock inside him. And Epstein is the crocodile with the ticking clock in it, following Trump around. It just never goes away. And ultimately, for those of you who know the musical, we know how that ends. But that's where we are. That's where we are. This is not going away, and you can't just say, "Well, let's talk about space aliens" to make it go away. And by the way, the Barack Obama comment was, it was such a stupid non-story. All he said was, the universe is infinitely large. The likelihood that life is out there someplace is therefore fairly high. Have we encountered it, or the likelihood that it would encounter us in an infinitely large universe? It's infinitesimally low, and there's no evidence of it. What he said, there's nothing new there. Riley, you can take off the tinfoil hat. The aliens are not coming to get you. This is just, I don't know.
To coin a phrase, thanks, Obama.
Thanks, thanks, Obama. Yeah, I don't know. I think I was watching Trump talking about how he's exonerated. Did you see the Board of Peace meeting?
Where he was like falling asleep?
Yeah, he was falling asleep for part of it. Obviously, if this were Joe Biden, they would have invoked the 25th Amendment. He can't stay awake for 30 minutes in public. He can't stay awake. That is not a sign of good physical or mental health, right? So, but that's one thing that happened at the meeting. Secondly, he rambled on in his usual way. He talked about Melania's movie. He talked about all sorts of craziness. He talked about that the prime minister of Peru was handsome, and he didn't like
that.
young, handsome men. But
he doesn't
did
like young, handsome men.
No,
women.
He doesn't. But he likes young. He likes attractive women. Unless it's AOC, who he thinks is attractive but horrible.
Good thing he's been totally exonerated, or I would say, that's a little incriminating.
Maybe it's a problem. Can you imagine being his communications people? Look, Mr. President, there is a sex scandal that has occupied everybody's attention. You have a bad track record on this. Could you go for 24 hours without saying something really creepy and sleazy? Because he can't. But then, he also said that we were giving $10 billion to the Institute of Peace, neglecting the fact that that money has not been appropriated, that he doesn't have the authority to give $10 billion out of nowhere. He then brought the meeting to a close using a golden gavel. By the way, having moved us not 1 inch closer to peace anywhere. Let's be clear about that. It's a sham, right? That's why our allies didn't show up. But then the real pièce de résistance was, as soon as it ended, some genius in the White House communications shop hit play on YMCA. And so they're like the sort of walk-off music for this supposedly serious meeting is YMCA. It's like, what the fuck?
Didn't they ask him not to use that?
Oh yeah, yes, of course they did. No artist wants to be associated with him, but
Right.
particularly artists who are associated with a community he's actively trying to persecute at all times. Um,
Nothing says international peace and freedom like YMCA, and I've
that's
always said that.
yeah. Well, you have. I just want to testify. Minna has always said that. That is, she views that as the anthem of international peace and freedom. Um, but if you take it in conjunction with uh, the Kid Rock and RFK Jr. videos from earlier in the week, it could be that in the basement of the White House ballroom, they're going to open a gay bathhouse. Um, uh, I mean, they seem to be, trending in that direction. By the way, the design for the gay bathhouse slash ballroom was approved this week by the committee that was entirely reconstituted by Trump in order to approve it, that is led by his 26-year-old former aide, who was one of the people who helped copy top secret documents illegally in his last presidency, and who has no experience in the arts or architecture. She was literally just hired there to say, yes, boss. So that's another development in this
I thought
weird week.
I thought you were gonna say it was run by that stuffed bear that's for some reason also in the bathhouse.
Well, that's no, but could be on the committee. Um, there is not a cabinet agency in the Trump administration that would not be improved were the person in charge of it replaced by a stuffed bear. Not a single one. Um, anyway, we better draw this to a close. Riley hasn't eaten solid food in a while. You can't continue on Jell-O. I think Riley's heading the way of Trump and is going to start nodding out any minute. Uh, good news for you.
You're not far off.
Good news, Riley. It's the weekend. You can recover. Just look, lie down, hydrate, take a lot of naps. Don't overdo it in the food department, but do try to get some nutrition. And if you need anything, call Minna or I, because we're right here. We're there for you, man. We will bring you chicken soup if you need it.
I appreciate you. The DSR family is strong.
The DSR family is strong. For now, on that note, thank you, Riley. Thank you, Minna. Thank you, everybody, for listening. Have a great weekend. Oh, and a little later today, we're doing Words Matter. So go look for Words Matter because it's a good discussion, I am sure, given everything that's happened this week and being able to debrief with the one and only, the spectacular Oracle of Washington, D.C., Norm Ornstein. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.